Welcome to We Repair Stuff. Today we're doing a screen replace on the iPhone 7 Plus. Um, this one was dropped and smashed the glass. So first thing we need to do is strip out the two pentalobe screws from the base of the iPhone 7. This phone has been repaired before, so the screen will be easy to lift out. There is no adhesive. I find the best way to do it is to use a craft knife with a flat end, and then you can just pry it upwards. If you don't have one, the next thing you can do is take a hairdryer or heat gun or heat plate to it, just to heat the adhesive up, and then you can lever it out with something pointy or plectrum or something along those lines. So once you lift it up, lift the edges of the screen up, you have to pop the top out and then fold the screen over sideways. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the L-shaped metal plate that connects the LCD digitizer and battery, and then we are going to disconnect the battery, which is the very first thing you always do when you're doing any repair. That way you're going to minimize any damage you do to the board. The other reason you'll need to disconnect the battery is so that when you reconnect the screen, it recognizes the home button, because otherwise it won't. So there we are, that's the battery disconnected and the LCD and digitizer disconnected. That will also disconnect the home button as well when you disconnect those two cables. Next thing we need to do is remove the three screws and the metal plate that covers the front camera assembly, flex cable and speaker. Again, these are all tri-wing screws to start with. There are a couple of plus-headed screws as well. So we just disconnect that flex. So that's us done with the phone for the minute. So first thing we're going to do is disconnect the speaker assembly and remove the cable. So we've got 4 or 5 screws at the top here, really just depending on the point at which the iPhone 7 Plus was made. Some of the newer ones come with 5 screws, some of the older ones come with 4. So again, because this has been removed recently, it will be very simple to get the flex cable and speaker out. So first thing we do is remove the metal bracket, then remove the speaker, which will just pop out. And then the thing that I find easiest to do is to take a small flat-headed screwdriver and just run it under the connector very, very carefully. If you damage it, that's no big problem. You can pick these parts up for around £5 or £6 on eBay. Or somewhere like Replace Space will sell them as well, and then they're £10 or £15. But again, it will just lift out in one piece very, very easily. So that's the front assembly disconnected and removed. So the next thing we're going to do is disconnect the home button. So there's 4 tri-wing screws holding the home button in place. Just remove all 4 of them from left to right or right to left. The home button is a little bit more fiddly to get out. Some people do it with heat. Some people get something to run under it very, very carefully. I've done both. I find running something under the home button is the easiest. So the first thing we need to do is disconnect the connections. So I hold it down with a spudger and then pop the connection open. And then I get usually either a screwdriver running under the first section if I can, and with the pluses it's not so easy to get, in this case I couldn't, or a very sharp craft knife just run under the edge very carefully just to start lifting it out, and then I will switch to a screwdriver. So there we go, that's lifted out just a tiny bit. And then the next thing I'm going to do is switch over to the screwdriver just to lift the rest of the cable out, and then it will just drop out the front of the phone. There is, as I say, a little bit of adhesive holding it in place. You can separate it very, very easily. So normally on these, there are 6 screws around the edge of the metal assembly holding the mid-frame in place. Because this phone has been worked on previously, there's actually only 5, as someone's lost one at one stage. So on the edges there are two tri-wing screws on one side, three on the other, and then there's one Phillips screw at the base. So you just literally need to work it all your way around the phone screen, removing those. So we're a little bit off camera here, but I'm just removing the one at the base of the phone now. And then there's one at the top. And again, just strip them out one at a time. And then the last one that you'll need to do is at the base of the phone, and that is a posi. And then once you've done that, just lift the metal frame out. The cables will pass through the metal frame, as you can see. Um, if it's the first time to remove them, they're usually glued in place at the bottom. Just be careful as you lift it out, and it will come out in one easy piece. So the next thing we're going to do is just the reverse of this. We will first of all thread the cables back through the screen and pop the screen down flush. Again, just line it up with the screw holes around the edge. Make sure the flex cables aren't caught at all. Make sure they're up as far as they will go. Again, if this is an original Apple screen, the first time it's being replaced, then they will be stuck to the bottom of that frame, and that will hold them in place a little bit as well. So I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch the whole process because we've already gone through it once. So again, working your way around the outside, each screw back in turn. Next thing I do is remove the little bit of plastic that's on the front of the screen, just so I can pop the screen home button back in. And then carefully line it up with the little dots on the board and push the connector down. Then we get the metal bracket, pop that back over the home button, put the 4 screws back in. Now the one that holds the home button in place, I tend to do last, and you just want it thumb tight. You don't want it really tight because you do stand a chance of damaging the home button, and the fingerprint sensor will not work. So just do it in until you feel that it's tight, but not. Don't really screw it in hard because you will damage the fingerprint sensor. So next thing, the front camera assembly and speaker needs to go back in. Just line it up as carefully as you can, and then pop the metal bracket back over the top and screw in the 4 or 5 screws depending on year of the phone. Okay, next thing we're going to do is connect it back to the board. Now, when we go to reconnect, the way I tend to do this is first of all connect the front camera assembly first. If you don't do it that way round, you will find it is a real pain to connect it all up. So front camera assembly first, and then after you've done the front assembly, you can do the LCD and digitizer cables one after the other. And again, always finishing with the battery so that you don't do any damage to anything. You will feel the LCD digitizer and the battery cables click into place. So the metal cover goes back over next. You can lie the screen down flat while you're doing this to save you having to hold the screen and put the screws in. So just working your way through one after the other. You need to do both metal plates, so it doesn't really matter what order you do them in at this point. I tend to do the battery one first because it covers all the sort of components up, so if you drop a screw you're not going to do really any damage to anything. Again, I've got a mag mat off to the side so it holds all my screws in the order I took them out, so I know exactly where they're going back. So then we need to do the top metal plate just to hold the front camera assembly in place. Again, this has got 3 screws on it. If you look at the iPhone 7, you'll find there's actually only two screws holding this bracket in place. This is because the battery is actually slightly bigger on the iPhone 7 Plus, so the layout of the internals on the phone is slightly different and the brackets are very slightly different. The components are not interchangeable between the two phones because of the size difference. The only thing that does remain the same is the speaker and the home button itself. So again, just to pop that third screw back in the top camera bracket, you do need to tilt the screen up. Next thing you do, screen in first at the very top of the phone. Just line it up and then push it down carefully all the way around. So just turn it on to make sure we've got some life in there. And yeah, that's the new screen working. So the final thing we've got to do is just pop the two pentaload screws back into the base of the phone. And that's it. I hope you've enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching.